Welcome back to the construct video, and in this video we're carrying on with our Pokemon series. Now, last episode we looked at getting some tall grass working, and this allowed us to be able to start a wild battle and actually move between our two different layouts. Today we're going to implement three small systems, first one being saving and loading, then we're going to be looking at runaway and battle, and then finally implementing our first Pokemon with its own stats. So let's get started. First thing for our save and load system is we're going to insert a new object and grab a text box. This is not needed to get this system working. This will just be a decorative thing just to show the player that they are indeed saving. So save text, we're going to put this up here, and I want to make sure that this appears above the player's head and is a decent size. Now I believe this size is far too big, so I'm going to drop this down to about 8, and I want to make sure that it is centered in the middle. This, I'm going to go vertical alignment to the center, horizontal alignment to the center, and I'm going to put it above the player's head like so. And I can resize this box a little bit because it's a little bit too big at the moment, and that's perfect. Once I've got that, I can then move that off screen just to the top corner of one of my layouts, as I don't need it to be on the screen at all times. Next, I'm going to go to my player, right click and edit. Now I want this to appear above my player's head when we're saving and loading. So to do this, all I'm going to do is right click and add a new image point. Make sure you're on this little crosshair here to get this image point section up. Add a new image point above the player's head, right at the very top. We might need to adjust this to be slightly higher. And most importantly, right click and apply to all animations. This means no matter which animation we're doing, this image point will always remain in that same place. In terms of code, we need to make sure we're on our world event, not our battle events. Add a new event. And I'm going to check if a certain key has been pressed. That key that I'm going to use is going to be S. I'm going to use S for save, L for load. Then you do a couple of things. First thing is we're going to take our player, spawn another object, and that's going to be our save text that we've just created. And we need to make sure this is on image point 1. Next, we need to actually change the save text to be the message we want it to be. So save text, scroll down, set text, and this is going to say saving. And then finally, we need to actually save. Now, there's different methods of doing this inside of Construct. The one that we're going to use is go to System, scroll down, and save. This will save the full state of the game to the local computer. This is not recommended for really big projects or games, but for small ones like this, it's absolutely fine. For other games, they normally save the individual variables, as this takes up a lot less storage. But again, small game, we can get away with this. So we're going to click Save. Give it a name, I'm going to call it My Save, and hit Done. Finally, what we need to do is just add a small wait. So I'm going to call this for about a second. And then we can take our save text and destroy it. It's served its purpose. We can now destroy it. One thing we're missing is if we move around while this save text is active, it's not going to move with us. So an easy fix for this is we're going to go to our save text on this side here, right click. We're just going to edit its behaviors. We're just going to add this hidden behavior. So the moment that we spawn it, we can take our save text. We can scroll down. We can pin to image point, we can click on our player to pin it to our player and set the image point to 1. Just make sure this line of code happened just after we spawn the object. Now if we save, text will appear, it will pin to our player, it will say saving, it will save the game, and then after a second it's destroyed. On the flip side of this, we're just going to take this whole block of code, double paste it, and we're just going to change a couple of things. First thing, we're going to change S to L. We're then going to change the text that says saving to loading, just to give us an indication that we're loading the game. And instead of saving the game to my slot, we will load it, my save. We're also going to add the second wait just slightly further up before we load the game, because what's going to happen is we load the game, it's going to move to that layout and that text is not going to be there anyway. So I want to give the player a bit of an indication that they are loading instead of just doing a quick jump to where we're supposed to be. So let's test this. If I go into my world and hit play, I can move around as normal. I'm going to hit save, so it's now saving. I'm going to move around a little bit more and then loading, and we're back here. You see the saving carried on just that little bit because it was part of that original save. I can hit save one more time, move around, and finally hit load. And we're back into where we're supposed to be before. So it's a really simple system, and now it's set up, we can save and load at any time, which can be useful for something we're setting up a little bit later. Another thing that we want to set up, which is a really quick fix, is being able to run from battles. We've got a lot of this set up already in our battle event, so we can run from a battle, or we can go back to where we were originally by going to this previous layout. We're just going to copy that line of code from the very bottom, and we've got an option for running from a battle. So if we scroll through, you'll see this option here, and it says cool dialog box, set text to running, and then when enter's pressed, go back to show options. This is what we set up for now, so we just keep looping through the menus and nothing really happens. What we want to do is get rid of the cool options and add in this line of code that says go to previous layout. This means now when we run from a battle, we'll actually go back to where we were before. Now, I've not set up anything like doing randomized checks to see actually can you run away, and this will look at the player's stats and the enemy stats to see if you're fast enough to run away. I'm not doing any of that, not at the moment, but at this stage it just means that when we're testing our code, we don't always have to battle each time to go back to the world, we can just run away. Final thing we're going to do is set up our first Pokemon. So what we want to do is have a stat for it, so it will have its own Pokemon stats, it will have stuff like levels, attack, defense, speed, all of that stuff that we can use to affect it in battle. Now, we're not going to set up all of that today, but we're going to set up some of it today. So first thing we need to do is create a new object, and this is going to be an array, and this is going to be called my Pokemon. And all our Pokemon are going to be stored in this array. We'll go to world 2, or world event, sorry, to set this up, and we need 2 new variables to set this up. So the first global variable that we need is going to be called first load, and this is going to be a boolean, and by default it's going to be set to true. What this boolean is going to do is check if we're booting up the game for the first time. What we don't want to do is have this array reset itself each time, because as our Pokemon level up and change, we don't want them to reset their level each time. So we need to do a check, are we playing this game for the first time? And our default Pokemon will not reset then each time. Second one that we need is we need a number, and this is going to be called current Pokemon. And this is going to hold which Pokemon is in our slot at the moment, and this is going to be set to 0. Now, you might be thinking, oh, I want my Pokemon to be this particular Pokemon, which I know is this particular number. We're not looking at what number they're in, we're looking at which ID they're going to fit in this array. So the first one is going to be 0, and that'll make a bit more sense in just a bit. So now we can scroll down to the very bottom, add a new event, and we're going to say system, and on start of layout. Second thing we're going to do is add another condition, system is boolean set first load. If so, the very first thing we're going to do is take that variable, set that boolean to false. So this bit of code will only ever execute once and once only, and that's as much as we need it to do. Next, we can actually set up our array. So we're going to scroll down, my Pokemon, and we need to start by setting the size. So in terms of the width, we're going to use 10 boxes and explain what all 10 of those are going to do. The height is how many Pokemon that you're going to have maximum on your team, which is going to be 6. And the depth we're not dealing with because we're only dealing with just height and width today. Now, before we carry on with this, what I always recommend when doing large arrays like this is to add a comment, and we're actually going to comment what each part of the array is going to do. So part 0 is going to be your Pokemon. Which Pokemon do you currently have in your party? Array value 1 is going to be your HP, and this is something that we're going to save after the battle. So after you finish the battle, your HP will be saved. So the next time you enter the battle, you're going to have less health going in. And next video, we'll look at how to actually do stuff like a quick Pokemon Center to get our health back. 2 is going to be max HP, so we know what to restore our HP back to. 3 is going to be our attack stat, 4 is going to be our defense stat, 5 is going to be our speed stat, and I could keep going with these with all our different stats, but we're just going to keep it really simple: attack, defense, and speed, as opposed to stuff like SP attack, SP defense, and stuff that you see in Pokemon games, especially in the more modern era. Finally, we're going to have 6 all the way to 9 be moves. So we get 4 moves, so we can decide what those moves are going to be in 6, 7, 8, and 9 slots. So with that set up, we can start filling this out. So I'm going to add an action, scroll down, my Pokemon, set X, Y, and Y is going to be the particular Pokemon slot we're dealing with. So we're dealing with slot 0, which is why we set our current Pokemon to slot 0. And that's the only one we're going to do today, but you could replicate this and have, okay, what's in slot 1, what's in slot 2, 3, 4, and 5, which would be all 6 of your Pokemon. Again, we're going to deal with slot 0. We're going to deal with the 0 item to begin with, and we set the value, and I'm going to say I want an Ivysaur on my screen, which means that that is the value of 1. And again, if you ever want to find these out, just right click on the battle Pokemon, and these are all your different Pokemon here. So if you wanted to have a Lapras on your team, you'd set this value to 130. And in fact, let's do that. Let's have this as 130. Let's have a Lapras on my team. Next, we're going to copy and paste this. And Y is going to stay the same, but the X is going to go up by 1, and 1 is our HP. So how much HP have we got? And I'm going to say we're going to start with 20 HP. Copy and paste again. Change the X by 1. Now, number 2 is our max HP. I'm going to say that 20 is our max HP, so we're starting with all our health. Copy and paste again. We're then going to change this to number 3. Number 3 is going to be our attack stat. For this, I'm just going to keep it 10 for now. We'll look at attack and defense properly next week because we first need to implement the enemy's stats. Because if they haven't got stats, we can't use attack and defense against each other. We need both those stats in place. So that'll be next video job. I'm going to set this to 10. I'm then going to copy and paste this 2 more times because I'm going to do the same for number 4 and number 5, being our defense and speed, because we're not worrying about them at the moment. Finally, we copy and paste for our moves, so number 6, and for our moves we're actually writing the name of the moves out, just like we did when we set them up. So I set up Razor Leaf, or Razor Lead, let's change that to Razor Leaf. Now, how do you find out these moves? Because we set them up all the way back in video number 2 or 3. Go back to your battle events, and if we scroll up, here's all the moves that we set up for ourselves. So I set up Razor Leaf, Flamethrower, and Bubble Beam. And the last one I set up to be empty. I'm going to do pretty much the same thing again. I'm just going to copy and paste these, but I'm going to leave the last 2 empty this time. So go into my world events. I'm going to take this value here. I'm going to have to copy and paste it. So let's make sure I can spell Flamethrower correctly on this one. And make sure that's 7. And we could leave that there. We can have our 2 moves, but what we're going to do is actually take these last 2 so we don't get an error. And we're just going to leave these as empty speech marks. And this just says that these slots have not been filled yet. And then if we do set up something like moves, we can check, is there any moves that are empty or have just 2 speech marks in like so? If so, they're a valid slot for us to add extra moves to. So that's our first Pokemon set up. So we can quickly look for its stats. It is Pokemon 130. It's got 20 HP out of a maximum of 20. Its speed, attack, and defense is 10. It's got the moves Razor Leaf and Flamethrower. And what I recommend if you add additional Pokemon is add a comment and call this Pokemon 2. So Pokemon 2. And again, we can have this for all our different Pokemon. So I can have Pokemon 1 start from here. And this just means that it's really easy to see our code and we're not seeing any mistakes. And obviously we can add these Pokemon dynamically when we capture them from an enemy or from the wild. They can be added dynamically into this without having us to create all this bit of data again and again. We've only done half the work at the moment though, because while we've set up our Pokemon, it is not implemented into our game. So this is where we need to go into our battle events. So first thing we need to do is scroll to the top, and you'll see that we're setting animation frame to players Pokemon, which we've currently set to whatever number at the top here. I'm going to add a new action. I'm going to do system. I'm going to set value, and this value is going to be player's Pokemon. And it's going to be my Pokemon dot at. It takes the X value first, and we know that 0 is the Pokemon that we've got, comma, and then it's asking for which slot, and we want to take current Pokemon for this, which is slot number 0, which is the only set of data that we set up. We can then move this to just above this stop animation, and that means that it will set our player's Pokemon based on those values. The second thing we want to do is actually set our health. So what we're going to do is do another action, system, set value, and we want player's health. And this is going to be my Pokemon at, and then the X value for our health is going to be 1, comma, and then current Pokemon. And scroll to the top and place that there. Final thing we need to do is actually change our health at the start of the battle to make sure it lines up perfectly with what it is at the moment. So for this, we can scroll down, and we've got an example where we lose health. So you'll see this line here on line 18 on mine, you'll see player's health between these two values. So I'm going to copy and paste this, and after I get the player's health, I'm going to set the value there. There's a couple of things we need to change with this line. First of all is a bit of a bug that I spotted when testing this. So I set this to 191, but actually if we get this value here, so I'm going to use the Z order bar to do this, and we get the player's health, you can see that the size of it is 141. So I need to make sure that is the value that's reflected. If you're using my template, you've probably got the same issue. So I just need to go to battle events, and first thing I need to do is change the width to 141 instead of 193. This doesn't really affect any other parts of the code. It might be worth changing at the other bit, but as long as it's working for this bit, your code will be working fine. Now what we do is we divide this by 20 and times by the player's health, because our player's health has always been 20. That's their maximum health. Now we've got the option for us to have more health or less health. So we need a system that can compensate with that. So times my player's health is fine, but we need to get rid of this 20. And instead, this is going to be my Pokemon dot at. Inside the brackets, we want maximum HP, which is value number 2, comma, current Pokemon, close bracket. And this means now no matter which Pokemon we pick and how much health that Pokemon has, these bars will always work the same. The time is 2. I'm just going to set this to 0.1, so at the start of the battle it's pretty much in the right place. Now, final thing that we need to do with this code is actually take our health at the end of the battle and save it back. So when we enter the battle again, our health has been changed. So to do this, we're going to scroll down. I'm going to scroll down to the moment that we lose a battle. Now, as computer's health equals 0 and player's health equals 0, you might not want to do it if your player health equals 0 because that might break your code. We need to work on getting some sort of Pokemon Center set up for this. So for this one, what we're going to do is we'll start with computer's health equals 0, so we've won the battle. We're then going to go into my Pokemon, set XY, and the X is going to be our HP, which is 1. Our Y is going to be current Pokemon that we've got, so we're in the right slot. And we're going to set this to player's health, and then hit done. This means that we're saving this variable back, and then at the start of a battle, we take that variable back from there. If we lose, what we're going to do is we're going to copy and paste this line of code. But instead of setting the value to 0 or whatever it was, which again will break our code because we'll start the game and then we'll already lose and then we'll never be able to get into a battle again. What we're going to do is we're actually going to set it back to its max HP. So my Pokemon dot at, and then we want value 2, which is our max HP value, then comma, and then current Pokemon, and then press done. This means now when we save, we're getting our health back. The only final time where we need to actually set our player's health back is if we run away. So let's copy and paste that into our new runaway system. So if we run away, we still keep that same amount of health. So if we just scroll through, we've got it right here. So we'll do it just before, or when we're doing the running, just before we hit enter, we'll set our health back. Final thing we've got to do then is just our moves to make sure that we're copying our moves through our Pokemon. This is really easy to do as well. So at this line of code here, this is line 12 for me, it might be slightly different for you. We've got battle move text, and we're taking moves at 0 loop index. All we're going to do is swap a couple of these bits around. So it's going to be my Pokemon. We're actually going to change this whole section here, and the first bit is going to be loop index. Now the loop index starts from 0 and it goes up 1 at a time. We still want it to go up 1 at a time. We don't want to start from 0. It's going to do loop index plus 6 because 6 is our first move, comma, current Pokemon. And this just means that now our moves are coming from our table that we set up in our world events at the bottom here, which is Razor Leaf and Flamethrower. So now if I go to world, I can do my test, and we should have a Lapras appear on the screen once we get into a battle, because that's our Pokemon we set up. We should now have the moves Flamethrower and Razor Leaf, which we do, and these should work just as before. And we can take some damage now. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to run away from this battle, and this will put me back. And now when I resume this battle or go into a new battle, I should have the same health I had before. And if we die for any reason, our health will reset, just like we would in a normal Pokemon game. And this is just making sure our game actually feels like it's a full game and not just resetting each time. It's not just, here's an example of moving around the world, here's an example of battle. Actually, these link really well together now, and it feels like it's actually saving and building upon something. So, hope you enjoyed today's video. If you have, I'd appreciate if you drop a like, subscribe to the channel for more construct videos, and I'll see you in the next one.